In the last 10 months, I've been to Thailand, Taiwan, Cambodia, Hong Kong, Macau, Japan, Sri Lanka, and to Singapore 3 times. I have had a lot of questions on how I managed to do it, so in this video, I'm spilling all of my secrets. This video is split into 3 parts that I'm calling priorities, sacrifices, and resource allocation. We're beginning with priorities because at the end of the day, it all comes down to that. Now, we've all heard the saying that money can't buy happiness, but I don't believe that's true. I think money can absolutely buy you happiness, but only if you spend it on the right thing. And the right thing to spend on is going to be different for each person. Allow me to introduce you to the fun priorities hierarchy. Basically, put the things that you spend on, not your needs, but your wants, into 3 different categories. No regrets, just buy, would be nice to have, and barely sparks joy. As an example, for me, in the no regrets just spend, I put travel, ticketed events like concerts or football matches, as well as language classes. In the middle category of would be nice to have / I'd like to buy, it would be things like gadgets, clothes, social expenses like going out, luxury or designer items. Finally, in the barely sparks joy column, for me it will be things like gym membership or fitness classes, jewelry, shoes, home decor. Now, after making this pyramid, I spend my money in accordance to it. So the reason I spend a lot on travel is because it is in my no regrets just spend category. But how exactly do I reduce my spending in the lower 2 categories? We're moving on to the second part of the video that I'm calling sacrifices. There are a lot of sacrifices I have had to make in order to be able to travel as much as I have in the last 10 months. Now, when I tell this to people, a lot of them are like, are you sure this is worth it? Or could never be me. But there's also a lot of things in my life, a lot of blessings that have allowed me to make these sacrifices and not feel like there's so much of a burden. First of all, after university, I moved back in with my parents, so I don't have to pay rent. We've all heard the saying that living with your parents is free because you pay with your mental health. I don't think I need to explain this point, everybody gets it, but that is sacrifice number 1. Number 2, I never go out. And I mean, there have been weeks where I would not even step foot outside of the house. My social life generally does not exist. I am always at home. Now, this could be due to the fact that I live in what I consider to be a small town, and I only know one person here who lives like 2 doors away. But being at home 24/7 has allowed me to save so much of money. Now, I understand that not a lot of people can do that because I work remotely, so I don't have to leave the house in order to go to an office or go to an event. I get to do everything that I need to do from the comfort of my home. But it's not always easy to open up social media and to see my friends hanging out, going to movies, cafes, going to events when I'm just at home on a Friday night. I don't get any of that ever unless I'm traveling. So I technically do get that once a month, but if I stop traveling, then I don't get any of that at all. Number 3, I eat only what I have at home. Now, it should be said that I am not a foodie, so spending money on food would be on the barely sparks joy category for me. So the way it works is that every day my mother will cook for me and I'll just eat whatever is being cooked. And then every Friday at night for dinner, we will order something online. But that's basically it. I know that food is something that brings a lot of people joy. So if that's something that you love spending on, go ahead. But it's not something that brings me joy, so I reduce my spending on it as much as possible. Number 4, I almost never shop unless I need something for when I'm traveling. Even if I wanted to go shopping, there's like 1 H&M in the entire state and no Sephora. And anything I buy, I don't really use because I don't really go out. So I don't really buy anything anyway. But basically, I live the hermit life for weeks. I'll travel for like a week and then I'll come back to this life. To a lot of people, it might not be worth it, but to me it is. It's all about what you're willing to sacrifice to get what you want. Something I do need to mention is that I would consider myself to be someone who earns a pretty decent salary, especially compared to what I have seen fresh graduates are currently earning, and I get to save the entirety of it because my commitments are very low. Everyone has their unfair advantages, so something that I might have, you might not have, but an unfair advantage that you have, I might not have. Life is all about making the best of what is given to you, and that brings us to the 3rd part of this video called resource allocation. Now, before I talk about the way that I would save money when it comes to travel and based on the way that I allocate my resources, I do have to talk about accommodation, which is the one thing that I absolutely will not skimp on. Now, I know a lot of people who try to save money while they travel by staying at hostels, and I've tried that, and those were actually some of the worst travel experiences that I have had. Now, I stayed in a hostel when I was in Hong Kong and when I was in Singapore, And both times I was stalked all the way back to my accommodation. It was absolutely horrifying, especially because I was all alone. In Hong Kong, I was absolutely horrified. I actually ran all the way back to my accommodation. And the first thing that I did once I got in was to book another accommodation because there was no way that I was staying there for another night. Now, I'm not saying that staying at a hostel means you're going to get stalked. A lot of people have had very, very good experiences staying at hostels. But this was just my experience with it. And there's just a very, very slim chance that you will ever see me at a hostel ever again, unless I'm with someone. So when I travel, I usually book Airbnbs or hotels instead of hostels. And I always make sure it's about a 5-minute walking distance from a public transport station, like a train station. And I make sure that the location is on the main road itself. Now, because of the location, it will cost me more than other accommodations. But trust me, your safety, or at least your peace of mind, is worth the extra cost. But now we're going to get into the money saving part. First of all, I fly cheap. I always use AirAsia everywhere I go. It's the first website that I check. But AirAsia isn't always the cheapest. For example, when I was flying to Japan, I did use AirAsia, but on the way back, the Vietnam Airlines flight was actually 300 or 400 ringgit cheaper than the AirAsia flight. My point is that find the best deal. It's not always the one that you think it is. Secondly, transport. If I can walk there in under half an hour, I'm walking. I know a lot of people who would be like, I'm just going to take an Uber. And if that's you, go ahead. But I'm saving that money. When I was in Japan, I literally walked everywhere. Most days, I was taking over 18,000 steps. Does that mean I didn't take the train at all? Absolutely not. I spent quite a bit of money on transport while I was there. But if I could walk, I did. So number 3, we're gonna have to talk about food again. And if you missed the first part of the video, I'm just gonna mention it again, that I am not a foodie. I consider this an unfair advantage because it means that I will not spend a lot of money on food, which can sometimes be a major cost for a lot of people. I don't live to eat, I eat to live. So that means that I actually could live off of those meals that you find at 7-Eleven and I'll be completely fine. Number 4, I never shop when I travel unless it is to buy some souvenirs for some people, but even then, I hardly ever do that. We've already seen that material objects are in the lower 2 categories for me. There's nothing that I can buy that's going to bring me an immense amount of joy, so I try to save money on that as much as I can. I'm trying to think if I ever bought anything while I was traveling and nothing really comes to mind. I did buy a Bayern Munich jersey when I was in Singapore, but that's because the jersey that I had, I asked the Bayern Munich players to sign, so I needed to get another one to wear for the match. But besides that, I never shop. Now, you could be one of those people who loves to shop when they travel and like to bring back a lot of memorabilia to put around your bedroom or your walls. And if that is you, if it brings you joy, then go ahead and do that. But if it doesn't, then what are you doing? Number 5, I try to do as much free activities as I possibly can. Now, this isn't something that I can always avoid. For example, when I was in Japan, there was no way I was going to miss out on going to Tokyo Disneyland, Tokyo Disney Sea, and Universal Studios Japan. But when I can avoid spending money on something, I would absolutely do that. You can go to parks or even visit shrines. For example, when I was in Macau, I went to a casino. I did not gamble. I don't know how. It was very overwhelming. But I did stay and watch them gamble for multiple hours. Now, the 5th part of resource allocation has to do with money, which you'll see in a bit, but it mainly has to do with energy. And I mean physical energy, because traveling can be exhausting. I have been traveling to a different country every single month, and I don't expect that to continue for this year because I did not consider the physical toll it would take on my body. And let me tell you, a girl is tired. Sometimes I've not fully recovered from one vacation and I'm already going on another one. Now, this depends on the kind of travel that you do. I grew up on an island, laid-back lifestyle. So when I travel, I like to go to big cities where I'm out for hours every single day doing something each time. Just the way the world is, we all want what we never had. But I digress. My point is that if you're traveling and you're physically exhausted, then you're gonna end up spending money on a lot of conveniences that you might not spend on if you had the energy to just rough things out. It's as simple as booking a taxi from the airport to your hotel or vice versa instead of taking the train because you simply do not have it in you. Trust me, I get it. I've done the same thing, but we both know that that cost is high and is a cost that is absolutely avoidable. It is something you can absolutely save money on, but if conveniences is in one of your no regrets just buy, then go ahead and do that. If I can support you entering your traveling era, I would love to do so. So if you have any questions at all, you can comment down below or send me a DM on Instagram. But that is the video. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.